the eyes that have lost their light. Have you ever looked into the mirror and noticed that your eyes felt heavy, as if the light within them had quietly faded away? Our eyes are often called the windows of the soul. They don't just see the world outside, they reveal the world within. Think about the last time you saw someone whose gaze was bright and full of life. You felt a certain warmth, almost like being touched by their presence. And yet, when anxiety creeps into our hearts, when the mind is restless and weighed down by worries of tomorrow, the eyes change. They become cloudy, dim, as though the inner flame is slowly being suffocated. In Buddhist teachings, the eyes are not just sensory organs. They are reflections of the heart-mind, the citta, as it's called. A mind that is calm, still, and anchored in the present moment shines through the eyes with clarity. But a mind entangled in fear, doubt, and endless what ifs radiates that unease outward. Even before a word is spoken, others can feel it simply by looking into your eyes. There is a story of a young novice monk, a Samanera, who lived in constant fear of the future. He worried whether he would ever be good enough to fulfill his vows. He wondered if his teachers would approve of him, if the village would respect him, if one day he would fail and be cast aside. These thoughts followed him day and night like shadows. And even though he tried to smile, the villagers who came to the monastery often felt unsettled when they met his gaze. "Why does this young monk look so anxious?" they would whisper. His eyes, instead of radiating peace, carried the turbulence of a storm. This is what anxiety does to us. It steals the light in our eyes. It's almost as if the body becomes a stage, and the eyes are the first actors to reveal the hidden script of our inner turmoil. No matter how well we try to hide it, through forced smiles, through polite words, the eyes betray us. They whisper to the world, "I am not at ease." And maybe you've experienced this yourself. Maybe there were days when you didn't even recognize your own reflection. You saw tiredness that wasn't just physical, but spiritual. You saw heaviness that came not from your body, but from your heart. Why is this so? Because the eyes are directly connected to awareness. When awareness is scattered, when it is pulled into the endless maze of past regrets and future fears, the eyes lose their clarity. In Buddhist meditation, teachers often remind practitioners to simply rest their gaze lightly, as if smiling with the eyes. When the mind softens, the gaze softens. When the mind is bright, the gaze shines naturally. Let me ask you, have you ever met a child whose eyes sparkled with wonder? They weren't worried about tomorrow. They weren't carrying the weight of what if. Their gaze was alive, unfiltered, open. Now compare that with someone sitting in an office cubicle, crushed by deadlines and self-doubt. The difference is unmistakable. Anxiety is not just an inner storm. It leaves imprints on the body, and the eyes are one of its clearest mirrors. This is why Buddhist practice places such emphasis on returning to the present moment. Because when you return here, now, you reclaim the light that anxiety tries to steal. Sometimes, when we are anxious, people around us may not even need to hear our words. They simply look at us and sense the heaviness. It is why conversations can feel disconnected, why relationships can suffer, not because of what we say, but because of what we silently radiate through our eyes. But here's the hopeful truth. Just as anxiety dims the eyes, calmness and mindfulness restore their light. When the novice monk in the story finally confided in his teacher about his constant fears, the teacher did not scold him. Instead, he told him, "Each time you notice fear about tomorrow, breathe, and gently bring your attention back to this step, this moment. The future will take care of itself when it arrives. Right now, all you need to carry is this breath." Over time, the young monk practiced faithfully. Slowly, the villagers noticed something different. His eyes no longer darted around nervously. They rested, calm and present, like a still pond reflecting the sky. And people began to feel peace simply by meeting his gaze. We can learn from this. Because no matter where you are, whether sitting at your work desk, waiting in traffic, or lying awake at night, you can bring awareness back to the present. You can soften the gaze, relax the tension, and invite light back into your eyes. Here's a little practice you might try. The next time you look into the mirror, instead of judging your reflection, pause. Take a slow breath. Look into your own eyes, not with criticism, but with compassion. Ask yourself, what story are my eyes telling right now? And then, offer them kindness. You may be surprised how a moment of inner gentleness restores a subtle glow to your gaze. Because the truth is, our eyes don't just look outward. They also reflect the very state of our being. And when we cultivate mindfulness, kindness, and presence, the eyes become radiant once more. So I invite you to reflect. What do your eyes say about the life you are living? Are they burdened with worry, or do they shine with calm awareness? As we continue this journey together, remember this: anxiety may cloud the eyes, but it never destroys the light completely. The light is still there, waiting for you to return home to yourself. And in our next part, we will explore how anxiety not only leaves its mark on the eyes but also etches itself onto the forehead, how even the lines across the brow can become silent witnesses of an unsettled mind. The wrinkles on the forehead. Are the wrinkles on your forehead truly from age, or are they etched by the weight of accumulated worries? When we think of wrinkles, we often think of time, years passing, the slow aging of the body. But not all lines on the forehead come from age. Some are carved much earlier, by something invisible yet heavier than years themselves: worry. The forehead is like a canvas where the mind paints its most stubborn anxieties. Every furrow, every crease, often tells the story of a thought that was repeated again and again until it left its mark. Have you ever noticed how, when you're deep in worry, your brow unconsciously tightens? Even if you're silent, the forehead speaks, whispering, "This mind is not at ease." In Buddhism, the body is seen as a mirror of the mind. What is carried inside eventually shows outside. A restless mind creates tension, and tension shapes the body. It is said that the weight of anxiety is not only carried in the heart, it can be seen in the way someone walks, the way their shoulders hunch, and yes, the lines across their forehead. There is an old folktale told in villages across Asia. It is about a father who spent his entire life worrying for his children. When they were young, he worried about feeding them. When they grew older, he worried about their studies. When they became adults, he worried about their jobs, their marriages, their health. His heart was never free from fear. By the time he grew old, his forehead was deeply lined, not just with the gentle marks of age, but with the heavy grooves of endless anxiety. And yet, despite a lifetime of worry, peace never came. His children lived their own lives anyway. His worries never protected them. They only carved suffering deeper into his own body and spirit. This story, though simple, holds a mirror to our own lives. How many of our worries actually prevent pain? And how many only carve deeper wrinkles into our foreheads? Think about it. How often do you find yourself frowning without realizing it? Maybe while checking bills, waiting for a doctor's call, or imagining worst-case scenarios. The muscles of the forehead contract over and over, creating patterns that eventually remain even when you try to relax. It's as if the body remembers the tension long after the mind has forgotten the specific thought. Here's something interesting. Modern psychology has found that worry often disguises itself as responsibility. We tell ourselves, if I don't worry, I don't care. But the truth is, worry is not the same as care. Care is active, gentle, responsive. Worry is stagnant, repetitive, and corrosive. Worry doesn't solve problems. It just engraves them deeper into our faces. And perhaps you've seen it. Someone who has lived through countless storms but carries a face that's still open, gentle, unlined by fear. And then another, younger in years, but whose brow is already marked by the weight of what ifs and what may comes. It is not the number of birthdays that age us most, but the number of anxious nights we've endured. The Buddha taught that clinging to fear of the future is like carrying a heavy load on your back without realizing you can put it down. Every thought of worry is another stone in the sack. Eventually, your body bends under the weight. The forehead, too, bends and folds, reflecting the burden inside. But here's the hopeful truth. Just as the mind shapes the body can help shape the mind. When you learn to soften the forehead, when you let go of that unconscious frown, the mind also receives the message. It's okay to rest. This is why many meditation teachers encourage practitioners to gently relax the brow before beginning. It's a small act, but symbolic. It is the act of loosening the grip of fear. I want to invite you to try something right now. Take a deep breath. Place your hand lightly on your forehead. Notice if there is tension there. Are you furrowing your brow without even realizing it? Now, breathe out slowly and imagine the lines softening, the muscles releasing, the mind letting go of the stone it has been holding. Sometimes, this simple practice can feel like setting down a bag you've carried too long. And yet, the question remains, why do we hold on so tightly to worry, even when it doesn't serve us? Perhaps it's because worry gives us the illusion of control. The father in the folktale believed that by worrying, he was somehow protecting his children. But in reality, life unfolded on its own, with joys and sorrows beyond his reach. His worry didn't shield them. It only consumed him. This is the wisdom that Buddhism offers us. Worry is not a form of protection, it is a form of suffering. And suffering, when not understood, becomes habitual. It repeats until it leaves marks both inside and out. But suffering, once recognized, can be transformed. The same energy that fuels worry can be turned into mindfulness. Instead of asking, "What if something goes wrong?" we can ask, "What is happening right now?" Instead of contracting, the mind can expand. Instead of carving lines of fear, we can cultivate lines of compassion. Because imagine this, what if the lines on our forehead could tell a different story, not of anxiety, but of wisdom, not of fear, but of resilience? The lines of someone who has smiled often, who has faced storms with grace, who has worried less and trusted more. These lines, too, are etched by life, but they carry a different energy, an energy that nourishes rather than depletes. So the next time you see your reflection and notice those creases across your brow, pause before judging. Ask yourself, are these lines the natural poetry of time or the scars of unrelenting worry? And then ask a deeper question, what kind of lines do I want to leave behind? The beauty of mindfulness is that it is never too late. Even if your forehead already carries the marks of worry, you can choose today to soften them, not only with creams or treatments, but with presence, acceptance, and release. The skin may or may not smooth, but the spirit can always find ease. I'll share something personal. There was a time when I carried so much pressure, I would wake up in the middle of the night with my brow furrowed, even in sleep. My forehead felt tight all the time. And one day, while meditating, my teacher simply said, "Soften your forehead." It seemed almost trivial, but when I did, I realized how much invisible tension I had been holding. That moment became a doorway. Each time I now catch myself tightening, I take it as a gentle reminder, I do not have to carry everything. And so, dear friend, let me leave you with this reflection. The forehead may bear the lines of life, but you can choose what kind of life it tells. It can tell a story of endless worry, or a story of gentle surrender. In the next part of our journey, we will go even deeper, not only into the lines of the body, but into the hidden fears that shape them. We will explore how to release those silent anxieties that we often don't speak of, but that shape the way we live, love, and age. Because in the end, the marks on our body are not just signs of what has been, but invitations to choose differently, to live more freely, and to finally ease the burden we no longer need to carry. When the eyes look but do not see. Have you ever stared at something for a long time, yet realized you weren't really seeing it at all? It happens more often than we admit. You're sitting by the window, eyes fixed on the trees outside, yet your mind is miles away, replaying an argument, worrying about bills, or imagining tomorrow's uncertainties. Someone could ask you, "What did you just see?" And you wouldn't be able to answer. Because the truth is, your eyes were open, but you weren't truly there. You were looking, but not seeing. This is one of the quiet effects of anxiety. It doesn't always come in the form of racing heartbeats or sleepless nights. Sometimes, it shows up in subtler ways, in the way we lose contact with the very moment unfolding before us. Anxiety sends the mind running ahead, chasing shadows of the future, while the eyes remain like empty windows. There is a story about a meditation student. She went to the monastery seeking peace, hoping to learn mindfulness. One morning, her teacher asked her to sit in the garden. Spring flowers were blooming, the air was gentle, and everything seemed perfect. The teacher said, "Just sit here, breathe, and look at the blossoms." She tried, but after some minutes, her teacher noticed her expression was clouded. He asked, "What do you see?" She hesitated and finally admitted, "Master, I don't really see the flowers. My mind is too full. I'm thinking about whether I will ever be good enough. I'm thinking about my family back home. I'm worrying if I'm wasting my time here." And so, even though her eyes were fixed on the blossoms, her heart was somewhere else. She was not seeing the flowers, she was seeing her fears. This story is not far from our everyday life. How often do we sit at dinner with loved ones, but our mind is busy scrolling through worries? How often do we walk past something beautiful, a sunset, a child's laughter, a blooming tree, yet fail to notice it because we are tangled in thought? The eyes are open, but the mind is closed. In Buddhism, this state is called being absent. The body is here, but the mind has wandered. To truly see is not just about the eyes, it is about presence. Presence means that when your eyes look at a flower, your heart is also there to receive it. Presence means that when you look into the eyes of someone you love, you are not distracted by your to-do list or replaying a past mistake. You are fully here. Let me ask you something. Can you recall the last time you looked at something simple, a cup of tea, a leaf, the sky, and felt completely absorbed in its beauty? No rush, no judgment, no thinking of what comes next. Just pure seeing. That is the kind of vision anxiety steals from us. When we live in constant worry, the present moment becomes like a blurred background we hurry past. We eat but don't taste. We listen but don't hear. We look but don't see. Life passes in front of us, but it doesn't reach us. I remember once, during a period of deep stress, I walked through a park on my way to work every day. Later, a friend asked me, "Have you seen the cherry blossoms this year? They are breathtaking." And I froze. I realized I had walked under those very trees for weeks, yet I hadn't noticed. My eyes had been glued to the ground, my mind busy drafting emails in my head, consumed with worry about deadlines. The blossoms had been there all along, offering beauty freely, but I had missed them. Not because they weren't there, but because I wasn't there. This is what anxiety does. It robs us of presence. It convinces us that peace will come after we solve all the what ifs. But the truth is, peace only ever lives in this moment. The flowers don't wait for your schedule to clear. The sky doesn't hold its colors until you've finished your worries. Life is happening, right now. The question is, are you here for it? There is a Zen saying, when the eyes are clouded, even the sun looks dim. When the mind is still, even a single flower shines like a universe. It reminds us that seeing is not about the object, it's about the quality of our attention. So what can we do? The answer is simpler than we think. To return to real seeing, we must return the mind to the body. When the mind is carried away by anxious thoughts, gently anchor it back to what is directly in front of you. Notice the colors, the shapes, the textures. Breathe, and allow yourself to arrive. You can try this now. Wherever you are, pause for a moment. Look around the room. Pick one thing, a plant, a picture frame, even the pattern on the wall. Instead of glancing, really see it. Notice its details. Notice its presence. Let yourself be here, with it, even if just for a few breaths. This small act begins to train the mind to return from the anxious future into the clarity of now. Because the truth is, when our eyes cannot see, it is not a failure of sight, it is a sign that our heart has been carried away. And the gentle practice of returning, again and again, is how we reclaim our vision. When the meditation student in the story confessed her inability to see the blossoms, her teacher simply smiled and said, "It's okay. The flowers are patient. Keep breathing, and one day, you will see them." And indeed, after weeks of practice, she began to notice. First the colors, then the fragrance. Then, one morning, she saw the blossoms as if for the first time, radiant and alive. Nothing had changed in the flowers. What changed was her ability to be present. This is the gift waiting for us all. Even in a life full of challenges, we can still learn to see deeply. And when we see deeply, the world reveals itself, not as a blur of duties and worries, but as a living miracle. So the next time you catch yourself staring blankly, lost in thought, ask gently, am I truly seeing right now? Or am I just looking? And then, invite yourself back into your eyes, back into this breath, back into the life that is happening here. Because when the eyes see clearly, it means the heart has returned home. And in the next part of this journey, we will discover a simple but profound way to bring the eyes back to the present, through the practice of mindful breathing. With each breath, the gaze softens, the mind settles, and the world comes alive once more. The heavy forehead. Do you ever feel as if your forehead is carrying the weight of a cloudy sky? It's a strange thing, isn't it? How worry doesn't just live in the mind, it etches itself into the body. You might not notice it at first, but sit quietly for a moment and bring your attention to your forehead. Does it feel tight? Heavy? Almost as if you've been unconsciously furrowing your brow for hours, maybe days? Anxiety has a way of planting itself right there. The forehead becomes a billboard for stress. Lines forming, muscles clenched, a subtle heaviness pressing down as if carrying invisible burdens. And yet, the forehead is also one of the most immediate gateways to peace. In Buddhist teachings, many meditation masters remind their students, relax the forehead, and the mind will begin to open. It sounds simple, almost too simple. but the connection between body and mind runs deep, deeper than we usually admit. Let me tell you a story. There was once a meditator who came to his teacher and said, "Master, no matter how long I sit, my mind will not rest. Thoughts race like wild horses, worries come in waves. I feel as if peace is something forever out of reach." The teacher looked at him gently and said, "Close your eyes. Now notice your forehead." The student obeyed. "Do you feel the weight?" the teacher asked. The student nodded. "Then soften it. Let it melt. Imagine your forehead spreading wide like the open sky." At first, the student resisted. It seemed too small, too insignificant a change. But slowly, he allowed the muscles to loosen, the furrows to release. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. His breath deepened. His chest softened. His thoughts, which had been pressing against him like a storm, began to quiet down. He later said it felt as though he had been carrying a stone on his forehead for years without realizing it. And now, suddenly, it was gone. It's almost miraculous how such a simple act can shift the whole inner world. But it makes sense. Think about the times you've been lost in worry. Don't you instinctively furrow your brow, clench your jaw, tighten your face? The body mirrors the mind. And the mind, in turn, reads the signals of the body. This creates a loop. Worry tightens the forehead, and the tightened forehead signals to the mind. Something is wrong. Stay tense. The cycle continues, sometimes for years. But here's the secret. The cycle can also be interrupted. By softening the body, even something as small as letting go of the tension in your forehead, you send a new message to the mind. It's safe now. You can rest. And the mind listens. I've experienced this myself. During a particularly stressful period, I noticed that whenever I was deep in thought, my forehead felt like a clenched fist. Even when I wasn't actively worrying, the habit of tension lingered. One day, I tried the advice of a meditation teacher. Let the forehead open like the sky. At first, it felt silly, but as I consciously softened that area, I noticed my breath naturally slowing. It was as if my body had been holding a secret switch to calmness all along. Science actually supports this. Studies in neuroscience show that facial tension doesn't just reflect emotions, it can reinforce them. When we furrow our brow, the brain interprets it as stress or worry, even if the original trigger has passed. Conversely, when we relax the forehead and soften the facial muscles, the brain receives signals of safety, which can reduce anxiety. It's like body and mind are constantly whispering to each other. So, let me ask you right now, how does your forehead feel in this moment? Heavy? Tight? If so, what would happen if you let it go, even just for a breath or two? Try it with me. Close your eyes if you want. Inhale slowly. And as you exhale, imagine your forehead widening, like clouds parting to reveal a clear blue sky. Feel the skin soften, the weight lift. Notice how even your thoughts feel less sharp when the face is at ease. It's a small act, but it carries profound meaning. Because in that simple release, you're reminded of something essential. Body and mind are not separate. They move together, reflect each other, heal each other. This is why ancient masters often taught not only meditation of the mind but also awareness of the body. They understood that you can't force the mind to be calm while the body is screaming with tension. Instead, by easing the body, you invite the mind to follow. The heavy forehead is a symbol. It tells us when we've been carrying too much, too many what ifs, too many I musts, too many unspoken fears. Sometimes, the solution is not to solve every problem right away, but simply to give yourself permission to set down the weight, even for a moment. And here's something to reflect on. What if your forehead could tell the story of your life? Would it be a map of worries? A series of furrows carved by years of restless nights? Or could it become a symbol of openness, smooth, soft, reflecting a mind at peace? I believe each of us has the power to choose, moment by moment, which story we let our forehead write. Think of the people you've met whose very presence makes you feel calm. Have you noticed their foreheads? Often they appear soft, unburdened. Their gaze is clear, their face gentle. It's not that their lives are free from hardship, but they've learned how to release the constant grip of anxiety, to let the clouds pass rather than clinging to them. And you can learn that too. So the next time you catch yourself lost in thought, brow furrowed, forehead heavy, pause. Remember the teaching, relax the forehead, and the mind will open. Try it, even for a single breath. You may be surprised at how quickly the storm begins to quiet. Because peace is not always about solving every problem. Sometimes, peace begins as simply as loosening the forehead and allowing the sky to return. In the end, the heavy forehead teaches us a truth we often forget. The body and the mind are deeply entwined. To care for one is to care for the other. When we soften the forehead, we soften the heart. When we release the weight from the face, we release the weight from the soul. And in the next part of this journey, we'll explore what happens when the heart begins to heal, how the eyes, once clouded with worry, can shine again with a light that comes not from outside, but from within. Eyes drained of life. There are eyes that look at you, but there's no life inside them. Have you ever noticed how someone's eyes can tell you everything before they even say a word? It's not about beauty, or color, or shape. It's about something deeper, something alive, or something missing. There are times when you look into a person's eyes and you feel warmth, energy, hope. And then, there are other times, when the eyes are open, but they seem hollow. They're looking, but not really seeing. They're there, but it feels as if the light inside has gone out. What steals that light? Most often, it's worry. Not the small worries of daily life, the ones that come and go, but the kind of worry that lingers, settles, and makes a permanent home in the heart. Prolonged anxiety doesn't just weigh down the mind, it drains the spirit until it shows up in the eyes. In Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha once said, "When the mind is bound, the light in the eyes fades." It's such a simple truth, yet so easy to forget. Let me share a story. There was once a layman, a devoted family man, who spent his life working tirelessly for his loved ones. But he was haunted by worry about money, about the future, about whether his children would have enough, whether his family would survive the storms of life. His body was strong, but his mind was never at rest. Day and night, thoughts raced through him like restless winds. And then, slowly, people around him began to notice something. His eyes were changing. The brightness that once made people feel safe in his presence was fading. When you looked at him, it wasn't just fatigue you saw, it was emptiness. His gaze no longer carried trust or confidence. Even when he smiled, his eyes betrayed the truth, a spirit consumed by worry. Have you ever seen this in someone you love? Or perhaps, have you ever seen it in yourself? I remember a season in my own life when stress had its claws deep in me. I thought I was holding it together, working, moving forward, keeping the appearances of stability. But one day, a friend said to me, "Are you okay? Your eyes look tired, not just physically, but tired in the soul." That hit me, because they were right. The light in my eyes had dimmed, and I hadn't even noticed. It made me wonder, how many of us are walking through life with eyes that no longer shine, not because we've lost our health or our youth, but because we've let anxiety choke out our inner flame. We live in a culture that spends billions on eye creams, cosmetic tricks, and artificial brightness. And yet, no product can replace the vitality that comes from within. You can hide wrinkles. You can change color with lenses. But you can't fake the sparkle of a free, peaceful spirit. Because real radiance doesn't come from the surface. It comes from the heart. Think about children. Their eyes shine not because of makeup or lighting, but because their minds are unburdened. They are present. They are alive. They look at the world with curiosity and wonder. That's the kind of light anxiety slowly steals from us. When the mind is weighed down by fear, the eyes no longer see the beauty of the moment. They're too busy reflecting what's missing, what's uncertain, what might go wrong. And so the gaze becomes dull, vacant, like a window covered in dust. But here's the good news. Just as the light can fade, it can also return. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that the eyes are not just organs of sight, they are mirrors of the soul. When the heart finds peace, when the mind loosens its grip on worry, the eyes begin to shine again. Not with artificial brilliance, but with something far more powerful, authenticity. I want to invite you into a little experiment. If you're watching this right now, pause for a second. Forget the outside world. Take a slow breath. Then ask yourself, what do my eyes reflect right now? If you were to stand in front of a mirror, would you see light, or would you see fatigue? Would you see curiosity, or would you see dullness? This is not a judgment. It's an invitation. Because the moment you notice the state of your eyes, you're already waking up to the truth. Your inner world is asking for care. And caring for it doesn't mean you need to solve every problem today. Sometimes, it simply means giving yourself permission to rest, to release, to breathe. I remember another time when I met a meditation teacher who said something that struck me deeply. He told me, "Don't try to make your eyes shine. Let your heart rest, and your eyes will shine by themselves." That's when I understood, brightness in the eyes is not something you can force. It's something that happens naturally when the storm inside begins to calm. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Studies show that chronic stress not only affects the body but also alters the way our eyes express emotion. People under prolonged anxiety often lose the micro-expressions of joy, the subtle twinkle, the spark that communicates vitality. But when those same individuals begin to practice mindfulness or compassion, their eyes literally brighten. The body records peace, just as it records pain. So, if your eyes feel drained, don't turn first to cosmetics or surface fixes. Instead, ask, what is my heart carrying that it no longer needs to? Your eyes are storytellers. They tell the truth that words cannot hide. If they look tired, maybe it's time not for more makeup, but for more compassion toward yourself. Because here's the truth, your eyes don't need to be perfect to be beautiful. They need to be alive. And aliveness comes when you let go of the constant weight of worry, when you allow yourself to breathe into the present moment, when you let your mind remember that it is safe to rest. So the next time someone looks into your eyes, let them see not exhaustion, not fear, but the quiet light of a heart learning to be free. Remember, eyes shine because the mind is at peace, not because of any cream or cosmetic. And in our next video, we'll explore the incredible power of mindfulness, the very practice that can restore that natural glow to your gaze, helping your eyes not just look alive, but truly be alive again. Where do blessings come from? Have you ever wondered where true blessings in life really come from? Is it luck? Is it fate? Or is it something we quietly build, day by day, through the way we live? When we hear the word blessing, many of us immediately think of fortune, wealth, or success. Maybe winning the lottery, getting a promotion, or stumbling into the right opportunities. But if you look deeper, you'll see something much more subtle and much more powerful. True blessing isn't an accident. It isn't random. And it isn't about whether life hands you everything you want. Instead, it's about the invisible fruit that grows from the seeds we plant, through kindness, compassion, and the choices we make every single day. In Buddhist wisdom, it's said very simply, blessings come from wholesome actions. From practicing generosity, from cultivating a compassionate heart, from avoiding harm, and from walking gently in this world. Let me tell you a story. There was once a poor farmer in a small village. His life was simple, his field small, his clothes worn. To the outside world, he seemed like a man with little to offer. And yet, this farmer had a habit. He always helped others when he could. If a neighbor's ox fell sick, he would lend his own, even if it meant his harvest would be delayed. If someone came to his door hungry, he would share his rice, even if it meant eating less himself. Over the years, people began to notice that despite his poverty, he never lacked friends. His small house was always filled with laughter. His children grew up in an environment of kindness, learning generosity not from words, but from his example. And when the farmer grew old, something beautiful happened. His children and grandchildren stayed by his side, caring for him, honoring him. When he passed away, the whole village came to his funeral, not because of his wealth, but because of his heart. That is blessing. Not the fleeting shine of riches, but the enduring light of a life lived with compassion. It makes me wonder, in our modern world, where we are constantly measuring blessing by numbers in a bank account or the size of a house, have we forgotten what true blessing really is? Think about it. How many stories do we hear of people with everything, fame, wealth, comfort, and yet their lives feel empty, their families broken, their hearts restless? And then there are others who may not have much in the material sense, but carry a radiance that makes everyone around them feel safe and loved. Which one feels more like blessing to you? Sometimes we imagine blessings as something external, something given to us by the universe or withheld by fate. But what if blessing is more like a mirror? What if it reflects back what we put into the world? If you sow seeds of kindness, you often find kindness waiting for you down the road. If you practice generosity, you often discover that when you're in need, people appear to help you. If you cultivate a gentle, compassionate spirit, you find yourself surrounded by warmth instead of coldness. This doesn't mean life will always be perfect. The farmer in our story still faced hard days, still carried heavy loads. But his blessings showed up not as a miracle out of nowhere, but as the quiet harvest of the life he had lived. I remember meeting a woman once who reminded me so much of that farmer. She wasn't wealthy, but she had this incredible gift. Wherever she went, people trusted her. If someone was sick, she'd be the first to bring soup. If someone was struggling, she'd show up, not with grand solutions, but with presence. Years later, when she herself faced illness, her community rallied around her. Meals, visits, financial help, all flowed toward her effortlessly. And when I asked her how she felt about it, she just smiled and said, "This is just love returning home." That line stayed with me. Love returning home. Isn't that exactly what blessing is? Blessing is not luck, it's love, returning home to you. So let me ask you, what seeds are you planting right now? Do you spend your days weighed down by resentment? Or do you practice letting go? Do you close your fists tightly around what you have? Or do you open your hands to share, even in small ways? Do you walk through life with suspicion and hardness, or with compassion and trust? Because in the end, those choices don't just shape the world around you, they shape you. They shape the expression in your eyes, the peace in your heart, the strength of your relationships. You don't need to wait for the universe to hand you blessing like a wrap gift. You are already building it, moment by moment. Every act of kindness is a brick. Every time you resist harming another, you're laying a foundation. Every time you show compassion, to others, or even to yourself, you're weaving the threads of blessing into your life. And here's something modern psychology has confirmed. Generosity and compassion don't just make others happier, they make you healthier. People who practice giving, whether time or resources, show lower levels of stress, stronger immune systems, and greater overall well-being. Science, in its own language, has discovered what wisdom traditions have taught for centuries. When you live with kindness, you don't just give blessing, you become blessed. So maybe the real question isn't how do I get blessings, but rather how can I become a blessing? Imagine if each of us lived with that mindset, not chasing blessings, but creating them. Not hoarding wealth, but spreading warmth. Not waiting for luck, but walking with love. The farmer in our story may have died without riches, but he left something far greater, a legacy of kindness. His children inherited not just his land, but his spirit. And his community remembered him, not as a poor man, but as a man rich in heart. That is blessing. And maybe that's what life is inviting you to consider today. What kind of blessing do you want to leave behind? Because blessing is not measured in what you hold in your hands, it's measured in what you leave in the hearts of others. So the next time you find yourself wishing for more luck or more wealth, pause for a moment. Look around. Look within. And ask, what blessing can I plant right here, right now? Because when you do, you'll realize blessing doesn't come from outside. It grows from the inside, and it ripens in the love you give away. And in our next video, we'll go even deeper into this journey, exploring how the smallest mindful acts can shape not just our lives, but the world around us. The eyes filled with fear. Have you ever noticed? Some eyes look around and see danger everywhere, as if the whole world is waiting to hurt them. Fear. It's one of the most powerful emotions we carry. It shapes the way we walk, the way we breathe, even the way we look at the world. Sometimes, you don't need to hear a person's story, you just need to look into their eyes. Because eyes can hide many things, but fear always leaves its mark. There's a line in the Dhammapada, the teachings of the Buddha, one who lives in fear is as if already dead. Harsh words, perhaps, but think about it. When fear rules your life, are you really living, or just surviving? I once knew a young man whose eyes told this story. From the outside, he looked fine. He was intelligent, hardworking, even kind. But his eyes, they betrayed him. They flickered constantly, restless, darting like a bird trapped in a cage. Why? Because he was terrified of failing. Every opportunity that came his way, he questioned it. Every friendship, he doubted it. Every challenge, he imagined disaster before he even began. His eyes were always scanning, as if failure was hiding in every corner. And slowly, something inside him began to fade. His confidence, his joy, even his trust in himself. Have you ever felt that? That sense that the world isn't safe, that people might hurt you, that trying might lead only to shame? If so, you know how heavy fear can be. Fear is like a pair of distorted glasses. You put them on, and suddenly everything looks threatening. A kind word sounds suspicious. A closed door feels like rejection. A small mistake becomes a prophecy of disaster. And the more you wear those glasses, the more real the illusion feels. But here's the thing, the danger isn't always out there. Most of the time, it's in here, inside the stories we keep repeating to ourselves. The young man I mentioned eventually shared something with me. He said, "I wake up every morning already rehearsing failure. Before I even start my day, I've already imagined everything going wrong. How can I look confident when my mind is already defeated?" That struck me deeply, because so many of us do the same, in quieter ways. We carry invisible scripts of fear, scripts that say, "You're not good enough. You're going to lose. They won't accept you." And our eyes reflect those scripts. They lose their light, their steadiness. Instead of seeing possibility, they see only threat. And yet, what if fear isn't the enemy? What if fear is just a messenger? Buddhist teachings remind us, fear arises when the mind clings to something, an outcome, an identity, a desire to control. Fear says, what if I lose? What if I'm not enough? What if things don't go my way? But if we loosen our grip, even just a little, fear begins to soften. Think about it like this. Have you ever watched a child learning to walk? They stumble, they fall, they cry. But what's in their eyes? Not fear, curiosity, determination, joy. They don't see failure, they see discovery. They don't ask, what if I fall? They simply rise and try again. When did we lose that? When did our eyes shift from wonder to worry? I believe it happens the moment we start measuring ourselves by outcomes instead of growth. When we tie our worth to success, fear takes over. And suddenly, our eyes can no longer see the beauty of the moment. They only see the shadow of what might go wrong. The young man in the story eventually began practicing meditation. At first, he resisted. It felt impossible to sit still with all that fear buzzing inside him. But little by little, he learned to breathe with it. To look at fear not as a monster, but as a teacher. And something beautiful happened. His eyes began to change. They became steadier, softer, and every now and then, they carried a spark of trust. Not because the world suddenly became safe, but because he discovered a safety inside himself. So here's the truth. If your eyes are filled with fear, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. Fear is part of the human story, but it also means you have an invitation to heal, to soften, to learn to live beyond fear. Imagine for a moment, what would your life look like if your eyes were not ruled by fear, but guided by trust? How would you walk differently? How would you speak differently? How would you love differently? Because here's what I believe. The eyes are not just windows to the soul, they are mirrors of the heart. When the heart is heavy with fear, the eyes look dim. But when the heart is nourished with trust, compassion, and courage, the eyes shine. No matter the age, no matter the circumstance. And perhaps that's why the Buddha's words are so powerful. One who lives in fear is as if already dead. Not because fear kills the body, but because it steals the light from the eyes. And without that light, we stop truly living. So the question becomes, how do we bring that light back? How do we let our eyes see clearly again, not through the lens of fear, but through the clarity of presence? The answer, I believe, begins with healing fear itself. Not pushing it away, not denying it, but meeting it with compassion, breathing with it, allowing it to loosen its grip. And that's where we'll go next. In the following video, we'll explore the very heart of this practice, how to transform fear into confidence, how to shift the eyes from seeing threat to seeing possibility. Because when the fear softens, the eyes awaken. And when the eyes awaken, the whole world looks new. The tense forehead of the modern age. Walk down any busy street and notice how many people are frowning, their foreheads tight with pressure. Have you seen it? That silent heaviness we all carry here, just above the eyes. The human forehead tells stories. It tells of worry, of deadlines, of restless nights and silent struggles. If the eyes are the windows to the soul, then perhaps the forehead is the billboard of our anxieties. And in today's world, that billboard is often lit up with stress. Take a look around. On the subway, at the cafe, standing in line at the grocery store, you'll see it. People hunched over glowing screens, their brows furrowed, jaws tight, eyes dimmed. The modern age has given us incredible tools, yet it has also scattered our attention, drained our rest, and carved invisible lines across our faces long before they should appear. The forehead, especially, has become a battlefield. It holds tension the way a sponge holds water. Every unspoken fear, every unanswered email, every social media comparison, so much of it lands right here. And we wear it, even when we don't realize. Think about your own day. How many hours do you spend staring into a phone or a computer? Have you ever noticed that when you're caught up in an intense email, or scrolling endlessly, or chasing a deadline, your forehead feels tight, your eyes grow tired, your breath gets shallow? It's almost as if the face itself forgets how to rest. This is not just coincidence. Science tells us that emotions don't live only in the mind, they live in the body. Anxiety doesn't just happen in thought. It shapes muscles, it shifts posture, it even clouds our vision. The forehead, being so close to the eyes, becomes one of the first places where this strain appears. And yet, the wisdom of meditation offers a profound reminder. Relaxation is possible, even in the smallest of moments. Many Zen teachers say, soften the forehead, and the mind will follow. At first, that sounds almost too simple. But if you try it, if you truly sit still, breathe deeply, and allow your forehead to release its grip, you'll notice something. Your thoughts begin to loosen too. I remember a story told in a monastery. A young student came to his teacher and said, "Master, my meditation is restless. My thoughts will not stop." The teacher looked at him, smiled gently, and said, "You are carrying your thoughts on your forehead. Relax it, and your mind will open." The student tried it, just softening, just letting go of that invisible weight, and suddenly, the buzzing quieted. For the first time, he felt peace. What a strange and beautiful thing. That peace of mind can begin with something as small as releasing the muscles above the eyes. But here's the challenge. We live in an age that doesn't value softness. Productivity, speed, efficiency, these are the gods we serve. And so our foreheads stay clenched, as if bracing for the next blow. We believe tension will help us perform better, think sharper, achieve more. But the truth is, a tense forehead doesn't give clarity. It only clouds it. Have you noticed? When your brow is furrowed, your vision narrows. You're less creative, less patient, less open. But when the forehead is smooth, the eyes soften, and suddenly, the world feels a little less threatening, a little more kind. So maybe the question isn't just, why are we so tense? Maybe the deeper question is, what would happen if we allowed ourselves to ease? Imagine this. You're sitting at your desk, overwhelmed by tasks. Instead of forcing your way through, you pause. You take one deep, intentional breath. You relax your shoulders. You let your forehead soften. You notice the weight lifting, just slightly. Doesn't everything look a little different from that place? Doesn't the problem feel less like a mountain, more like a hill you can climb step by step? This is the promise of mindful breathing. That with each inhale, we invite clarity. With each exhale, we release tension, not just in the mind, but in the very muscles that hold our anxiety. The forehead becomes not a battlefield, but a doorway back to presence. And here's what's remarkable. It doesn't take hours of practice to begin. Sometimes, a single mindful breath is enough to shift everything. The body and mind are not separate. When one eases, the other follows. A calm forehead can lead to a calm thought. A calm breath can lead to a calm life. So next time you catch yourself staring at a screen, furrowed and fatigued, try this small experiment. Close your eyes, take one slow breath, and soften your brow. It might feel strange at first, almost too simple. But notice how it feels. Notice how the tension begins to melt, how the eyes regain a bit of light. That is the beginning of freedom. Because the truth is this, the tension on your forehead isn't caused by the world outside. It's shaped by the way we hold the world inside. And that means the power to release it is already within you. The modern age will always be busy. Technology will always demand our attention. But peace is still possible. It begins with the smallest of choices, the choice to breathe, to soften, to return to yourself in this very moment. So the next time you walk down a crowded street and see furrowed brows everywhere, ask yourself, do I want to carry that weight, or do I want to let it go? The answer is already waiting, just beneath your skin. And in the next video, we'll go deeper. We'll explore the breath itself, not just as a tool for the forehead, but as nourishment for the eyes, the mind, and the heart. Because when the breath heals, the face brightens, and life feels lighter. When the eyes know how to smile. Have you ever seen eyes that know how to smile? Not just lips curving upward, but a light shining from deep within the gaze. There is a kind of smile that doesn't need words. It doesn't even need lips. It radiates quietly, softly, from the eyes. And when you encounter it, you feel it immediately. It's like standing in the warmth of sunlight after days of rain. We've all seen the opposite, haven't we? Eyes heavy with worry, drained by sleepless nights, dulled by endless anxiety. They may look at you, but the life inside them feels far away. Now, imagine the contrast, eyes so calm, so alive, that they seem to smile on their own. That smile is not just charm, it is peace made visible. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh often said, "Smile with your eyes, so others may see the peace inside you." What a simple yet radical teaching. He wasn't speaking about forcing a grin or putting on a mask of positivity. He meant something deeper, that when your heart is at ease, when your breath is steady, when your mind is not chained by fear, the peace within naturally shines out, and the eyes carry it first. Have you ever noticed how a child's eyes sparkle without effort? They're not calculating, they're not hiding, they're simply present. Their gaze itself feels like a smile. Somewhere along the path of adulthood, under the weight of responsibilities, many of us lose that sparkle. But here's the truth, it can be restored. There's a story I once heard from a meditation center. A group of practitioners sat together in silence, each wrestling with their restless thoughts. Among them was a young student who, for days, had struggled deeply. His mind was noisy, his body tense, his spirit unsettled. And then, during one evening sit, something shifted. He softened his breath, he allowed himself to simply be, and in that surrender, his whole face transformed. He didn't speak a word. He didn't make any dramatic gesture. But his eyes, they began to smile. And here's the miraculous part. Another student sitting across from him felt an immediate wave of calm. She said later, "I don't know why, but when I saw his eyes, my own heart became quiet." That is the silent power of a smiling gaze. You see, when the eyes smile, they don't just reflect your inner world, they also transform the world of others. Have you ever had a stranger's smile, or even just their warm gaze, completely change the course of your day? It's like being reminded that kindness still exists, that peace is possible, that maybe everything will be okay. And here's something fascinating. Modern neuroscience supports this ancient wisdom. Studies show that when we see someone smile, especially a genuine smile that involves the eyes, our own brain releases oxytocin and dopamine, chemicals linked to trust and joy. In other words, smiling eyes are contagious. They pass on calmness, not through words, but through presence. So what gives birth to smiling eyes? It isn't makeup. It isn't forced cheerfulness. It is the fruit of an inner practice, the daily cultivation of ease, of mindfulness, of compassion. When the heart rests, the eyes shine. When the mind loosens, the gaze softens. I remember once meeting an elderly monk whose entire presence felt like a quiet river. He barely spoke, but when he looked at you, it was as if he was embracing you without touch. His eyes carried no judgment, no rush, no hidden agenda, only stillness. And in that stillness, I felt safe, seen, even healed. That is the smile of the eyes. It makes me wonder, what would our world look like if more of us learned to smile with our eyes? How many conflicts could be softened? How many relationships restored? How many moments of loneliness eased? Because here's the thing, people don't just listen to your words. They feel your gaze. Your eyes tell the story your heart is living. And maybe this is an invitation to notice how we move through the world. Are our eyes heavy with worry? Or do they carry a quiet joy that others can lean on? Do they close themselves in fear? Or do they open like windows, letting light pass through? The good news is this, smiling eyes can be cultivated. Just like a garden, they grow when tended with care. Through simple practices, mindful breathing, daily gratitude, compassion toward others, we water the seeds of peace. And slowly, without effort, the eyes begin to reflect what is blooming inside. Try this right now. Close your eyes. Take one gentle breath in. And as you breathe out, imagine sending a small smile, not to your lips, but to your eyes. Let them soften. Let them brighten from within. Then open them again. Notice how different it feels to look at the world with eyes that are smiling, even if only slightly. Doesn't everything look a little kinder? Because when your eyes smile, you remind yourself, and those around you, that healing is possible. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to prove it. The gaze itself carries the message, I am at peace, and you can be too. So maybe the challenge of our age is not just to work harder, or to chase more accomplishments. Maybe it is to learn again the art of the smiling gaze, to offer presence, to radiate calm, to allow the eyes to carry peace into a restless world. The eyes that smile are not pretending. They are the evidence of inner freedom. They are the living proof that suffering can be transformed, that wounds can be healed, that joy can be rediscovered even in simple things. So next time you look in the mirror, don't just check your reflection. Look into your own eyes. Ask yourself, do they smile? Do they carry peace? Do they reflect the life I wish to live? And if the answer is not yet, don't be discouraged. Because like any practice, it begins with small steps. A breath, a moment of gratitude, a gentle reminder to soften. Over time, the eyes learn to smile on their own. And when they do, you won't just see the change. Others will feel it. Because eyes that smile are not just for you. They are a gift to everyone you meet. And that is the miracle. In the next video, we'll explore exactly how to nurture that smile each day. Not through force, not through performance, but through simple daily practices that water the seeds of joy inside you. Because smiling eyes are not an accident, they are a cultivation. And they begin with you. A relaxed forehead, an open mind. Have you ever noticed that when your forehead relaxes, your mind seems to open too? There's something curious about the forehead. It's such a small part of the body, and yet, it silently carries so much of our stress. Think about it. How many times a day do you catch yourself frowning, eyebrows pinched together, lines etched deep across your forehead? Most of the time, we don't even notice it. But the body remembers, and the mind feels it. The Buddha once taught that body and mind are not two separate realms. They are deeply interwoven, like two sides of the same sheet of paper. Whatever happens in the body leaves an echo in the mind. And whatever happens in the mind writes itself on the body. Your forehead is one of the clearest mirrors of that truth. Picture this. You're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Without realizing it, your brow tightens, your temples ache, and your whole face contracts. It's as if your forehead is holding your entire frustration. And yet, in another moment, maybe on vacation, sitting quietly by the ocean, with nothing to do, your forehead softens, your skin smooths out, your eyes brighten. The body relaxes, and instantly, so does the mind. There's a beautiful story told in a monastery about an elderly monk. He once noticed a young student in deep distress, face tense, forehead locked like a fortress. The student had been struggling with meditation for days, caught up in restless thoughts, unable to sit still. The old monk walked over, placed a gentle palm on the student's forehead, and whispered two words, "Let go." In that instant, the young man felt as if a heavy stone had been lifted. His face softened, his mind lightened, and for the first time, he tasted real peace. I often wonder, how many of us carry the same invisible weight, written right here on our foreheads? Stress, worry, ambition, fear, like graffiti etched into the skin. And the more we hold on, the deeper the lines become. Some people call them wrinkles of age, but more often, they are wrinkles of worry. And yet, there's another side to this. When the forehead is open, smooth, and relaxed, something magical happens. The mind mirrors that openness. You feel more spacious inside, more forgiving, more ready to receive life as it is. In fact, in many cultures, a broad, relaxed forehead has always been seen as a sign of wisdom, openness, and calm authority. It's as if the body is telling a story the heart already knows. Let me ask you, have you ever talked to someone whose very presence put you at ease? They didn't even have to say much. It was in their face, their gaze was steady, their brow soft, their whole expression unhurried. Just being near them felt like taking a deep breath. That is the silent power of a relaxed forehead. And modern science agrees. Psychologists have discovered something called the facial feedback loop. Simply put, your facial muscles don't just reflect your emotions, they help shape them. When you frown, your brain actually becomes more likely to feel stress. When you soften your brow, your nervous system begins to calm. The face whispers messages to the brain, and the brain listens. That means peace is not always about waiting for the perfect conditions. Sometimes, it begins with something as simple as letting your forehead release its grip. Try this with me. Close your eyes for just a second. Notice your forehead. Is it tight? Are your eyebrows pulled together? Now, imagine smoothing it out, like gently erasing a chalkboard. Breathe in, and as you breathe out, soften your brow. Do you feel that subtle shift? That tiny opening inside? That's the doorway to peace. The old monk's words, "let go," weren't just about thoughts. They were about the body too. Because when the body lets go, the mind follows. And when the mind lets go, the body responds. It is a cycle of release, a dance of ease. I once met a therapist who told me she could tell everything about her client's state of mind just by watching their foreheads. If their brow is a battlefield, she said, their mind is too. If their brow is open, the healing has already begun. Isn't that fascinating? It makes me wonder, what if we treated our foreheads like a spiritual barometer? Each time we notice tension there, instead of ignoring it, we use it as a reminder to pause, breathe, and soften. That single act could transform not just our face, but our entire way of living. Because here's the deeper truth. An open forehead is more than just relaxed skin. It is a symbol of an open heart. When the brow softens, judgment loosens. Defenses drop. The world feels less like a threat, and more like something we can embrace. Maybe this is why so many images of enlightened beings, Buddha statues, paintings of saints, icons of sages, show them with smooth, serene brows. Their bodies were at rest because their minds were at rest. And their minds were at rest because they had learned the art of letting go. So the next time you catch yourself in a mirror, ask not just how you look, but how you feel. Is your forehead clenched like a fist? Or is it open like the sky? That small shift may be telling you more about your spirit than you realize. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to wait for a monastery to practice. You don't need a monk to press your forehead. Every day offers chances to soften. Each moment of stress is an invitation to release. A breath here, a smile there, a quiet reminder, buong icon, let go. The forehead tells a story. It can tell of battles fought in silence, or of peace cultivated in presence. And when your brow opens, your mind opens. When your mind opens, your life opens. So remember this: bright eyes, relaxed brows, an open forehead. These are not just signs of beauty. They are signs of peace. They are the quiet evidence that your inner world is aligned, that body and mind are walking hand in hand. And in the next video, we'll look even deeper at how worry doesn't just mark the face, but also hides itself in our voice. How tone, pace, and words carry our anxiety out into the world. And most importantly, how to transform that voice into something steady, calm, and healing. But until then, perhaps take this as a small practice. Throughout your day, notice your forehead. Each time it tenses, let it be a bell of mindfulness, a signal to breathe, to release, to open again. Because when the forehead opens, so does the heart. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real freedom begins.